Such a crummy, dreary Friday evening. It's probably a good spot to be given what's the weather is tonight. There are some new faces, as Jeff just asked. Some of you I don't know. I don't think I've ever met a handful of you. So hopefully you can learn a little bit about what we do tonight. As Jeff mentioned, I'm with the Schuykill River Greenways, and I will just try to switch over to my PowerPoint here. See if I can get that to work.
And Tim, you're okay with people asking you questions as we go, right?
Yep. You'll just have to let me know. Somebody's just speak up. So can everybody see the PowerPoint there? Is it up?
Yep.
I can say it.
All right, great. So hopefully, hopefully that is not what ends up, what you look like when I come back at the end of my PowerPoint. Okay, that's what we're going to try to avoid. So many of you know the Greenways, and so I just will take a couple minutes to inform everybody and give folks some background as to who we are, what we do, especially for those that don't know us. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we function out of Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Our office is in Pottstown, right in Riverfront Park. We started in the mid-1970s up in the Reading area by a handful of environmentally minded folks who wanted to preserve the Greenway along the Schuykill River in Berks County. So that's how they started, and they also began thinking about developing a trail system that would be along the Schuykill River itself. So that's how the organization started in the 70s. We eventually moved down to Pottstown. We currently have a staff of about 10 people, and we work in a bunch of different areas. But our mission is to connect residents, visitors, and communities to the Schuykill River and the Schuykill River Trail by serving as a catalyst for civic engagement and economic development in order to foster the stewardship of the watershed and its heritage. So that's what we do. That's our mission. How do we do that? We do that through a number of different ways. We have recreation projects, which is what I'm going to spend the most of my presentation on tonight. We have education programs. We have a big conservation program. It's called the Schuykill River Restoration Fund. We re-grant funding from both private and public funders to nonprofit agencies, to local governments, to improve the water quality within the Schuykill River watershed. And then we also engage constituents and communities in our work. So that's the way we sort of go about putting that mission into place and into action. The Schuykill River Greenways is also a national and state heritage area. So national and state heritage areas are defined as unique places where historic, cultural, and natural resources combine to form a cohesive, nationally significant story and landscape. And so you might ask why the Schuykill River region got those designations. Basically, we got that designation based off of 3 revolutions: the American Revolution, which had a significant role, of course, in the Philadelphia area and region; the Industrial Revolution, with anthracite coal and all of the other history that came with that, the canals, the railroads, all the industries along the river; and then lastly, the Environmental Revolution. A lot of people don't know that the Schuykill River was the very first federal and state environmental cleanup project in the country. It started in the 40s and continued into the 50s. A lot of the dams along the river were created to remove coal silt from the river. So we've done a lot of work to interpret that history as well. And then we also oftentimes talk about the 4th revolution, which is the recreational revolution, which you all are involved in. And that is people returning to the banks of the river to play and enjoy and to recreate. So we became a state heritage area in 1996, and that program is overseen by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. And we received our federal designation in the year 2000 through the National Park Service. So we work very closely with both of those partners, both of those agencies, with a lot of work that we do. There are a total of 12 state heritage areas in Pennsylvania, and there are a total of 55 national heritage areas in the country. So they're pretty neat programs. If you have interest in getting online, checking them out. If you're ever traveling, it's really cool to go on and find where the national heritage areas are. There's a lot of really great programming that each of them do, similar to how we run our program. So that's probably pretty small for you to see, but that's a map of the heritage area. The darker sort of pinkish lines are county borders, and then the darker shaded sections inside of those county borders are where we operate as an organization. So most of Schuylkill County, pretty much all of Berks County, most of Montgomery, Philadelphia, and then the far sort of northeastern portion of Chester. Basically the spine of the river and a good portion of the entire Schuykill River watershed is where we do our work.
So even though you're out of Pottstown, you pretty much cover the whole river.
Yes, yep. So we work all the way up from Pottsville and the communities a little bit north of there, all the way down to Philadelphia, Bartram's Garden, down to Fort Mifflin. We do work all throughout there. So Pottstown just happens to be sort of in the middle of the watershed, and it's sort of where we have set up our headquarters at. So that's a little bit of an introduction to who we are, what we do. So now what you really came for to hear about. No, not him.
I remember that dress.
So I will talk tonight about 4 different things. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Schuykill River Trail, a little bit about the Schuykill River Water Trail, fill you in a little bit on the programming we have planned for 2020, as well as some of the virtual programming that we're sort of currently working on creating and implementing. So the Schuykill River Trail, of course, that's our signature project. It's, as I mentioned, it's a project that the organization has been working on since the 1970s. The Schuykill River Trail is a planned trail that when it's complete will be 125 miles long. It will go from Fort Mifflin down by the airport all the way up to Frackville, which is northwest of Pottsville. Currently, there is about 65 miles completed. That's not continuous. There are several breaks in those completed sections. A couple years ago, the Schuykill River Trail was voted the #1 urban trail in America by USA Today. So that was a really great accolade to get, and brought some great attention to the work that we're doing along with some of our partners. And of course, a lot of you who are in recreation and interested in recreation know what the benefits of long distance regional trails bring to communities, bring to downtown areas, revitalizing communities that, at least in our area, have over the years sort of turned their backs on the river. They're now recognizing the value that the river and the trail have. And so that's a lot of the work that we end up doing. But that is our signature project. The Schuykill River Greenways, we own and maintain the trail in both Berks and Schuykill counties. So all of it from just north of Pottstown all the way up above Pottsville. Any of the sections that are completed there are owned and maintained by our group. The other sections, the sections through Montgomery County, Chester County, and in Philadelphia, those are owned and maintained by the counties themselves. So we sort of are the major convener of all those partners. We have a trail council, we have host trail meetings. We work with a lot of partners in the counties up and down the trail for, you know, consistent signage, consistent promotion, all those sorts of things, all the efforts that go into working to make an amazing trail here in southeastern Pennsylvania. So that's some background on the trail. A couple projects that we're working on in 2020. I'm not going to go into too much depth on these. I'm going to give you some information later as to how you can learn more about each of these. But in 2020, we actually have 2 really, really exciting projects coming for the trail. The first one is the Auburn Bridge. If you've ever gotten on the trail up in Hamburg and rode north about 6 or 6.5 miles, you'll get to a point where you can't go any further. There's some barricades and you can't, the trail basically stops. And that is because you're basically reached the location of the Auburn Bridge. And that's the bridge in the picture on the left and in the background. The Auburn Bridge is the older, darker bridge in that top picture. We own that bridge, and we are about to renovate it to cross the Schuykill River so that we can continue creating and building trail into Schuylkill Haven and towards Pottsville. So that project is going to, it's underway. We got a large federal grant that was split between our organization and the Schuykill Headwaters, which is a group that does water quality projects up in Schuykill County. And they did the reclamation of a local property that's right near this bridge. And in conjunction with that, we received funding to renovate and redo this bridge. So that project is started. Some of the groundwork is already underway, but we hope that it will be fully completed by 2021 at some point next calendar year. We have a second bridge project happening. It's very rare to have one bridge project sort of on our books, but it's especially rare to have two of them at the same time. The second bridge project that we're starting this year is the Monocacy Bridge. If you've ridden the trail northwest of Pottstown, you've certainly encountered what's probably one of the worst at-grade road crossings on the trail anywhere. But very steep slopes on both sides of Route 724. The picture doesn't quite do it justice, the sloping there. But we are about to put this project out to bid. We're waiting on some final documents from the state and final approvals. But we hope that project will be out to bid within the next month or so. And we're really hoping that construction will begin here in 2020 at some point. So there will be a single span bridge that will go all the way from one side to the other side of 724, really getting rid of this entire sort of difficult situation here. So those are two exciting projects. I'm going to talk to you a little bit later in my presentation, give you some info on how you can learn more about each of these projects in a lot more depth than what I'll provide for you tonight. So one of the other cool things that we get to do as an organization is we are the administrator and manager of the Schuykill River Water Trail. So there are both, again, like there's national and state heritage areas, there are also national and state water trails. And we are a Pennsylvania designated water trail. And we were given this, this title in, I believe, 1999. And our organization was chosen to be the administrator of this. So basically what that means is we work on the river itself. We work on making it accessible to the public. We install landings and docks and access points for the public. We have installed and created the sort of the overall branding and signage for the water trail. Try to provide amenities for boaters and paddlers and fishermen and anybody who's wanting to access the river. We have partnerships that work with us on this. And so one of the things that we've really made a refocused effort on the last couple of years is really improving existing landings for the river and also creating new landings. So in last year, in 2019, we actually upgraded 2 landings. One of them is at Peter Yarnell Park in Berks County, just south of Hamburg. And this is that landing shortly after it was finished. It was finished about a couple weeks prior to last year's sojourn. And you can see that it's a really nice, easy grade. If you were ever at that park prior to this being done, it was a miserable situation getting in and out of the river there. So it's a great new access point. We actually have a phase 2 of this project that will be happening. It'll be an increased parking and turnaround area for cars and vehicles to load and unload boats. So that project is supposed to be constructed in 2020 as well. The other landing that we addressed and improved last year was in Bridgeport, which is the opposite side of the river from Norristown. This is a great location. It's right below the Norristown Dam. It's a really important access point, not only for the portage itself, sort of to get around the Norristown Dam, but it's also a great put-in so that you can paddle into communities like Conshohocken and down into the Philadelphia area. So this was completed as well shortly before the sojourn. That was the ribbon cutting we had the day of the sojourn, and that was heavily damaged in one of the major storms that we had probably 3 or 4 years ago. So we're hoping that the new design holds up to some of the high water events that we've been having. So if you have a chance to go paddle down there, it's a really fun little section of the river. Some other ones that we're going to be working on in the coming years, Port Clinton has an access point, but that needs to be improved. Perry Township, we're looking at installing a brand new water trail landing there. Jim Dietrich Park is another one that we use for the sojourn. If you're a paddler and you don't know this, Jim Dietrich Park, it's a part of the Muhlenberg Township park system. That is one of the only locations along the river that you're allowed to camp. I know Take It Outdoors has held programming that has camped there before. It's a really great resource. You can contact their Parks and Rec department, and you can get a permit to camp overnight there. Very difficult topography if you've ever been there. Really, really steep slopes down to the river, but it's absolutely beautiful. One of the most beautiful spots on the river with the big palisades and rock wall formation on the opposite side of the river. So that's one that we're partnering with Jim Dietrich Park. Muhlenberg just got a big grant from Fish and Boat Commission to improve some of that landing. Another area of focus for us is the Conshohocken area. We have been working for a number of years to try to get a landing, a public access point in Conshohocken. As you probably may or may not know, there's a boathouse there that's private. There is somewhat of a river access that is used by the borough for fire trucks, for filling fire trucks and those sorts of things, but there's no access at all to Conshohocken, and it's a really untapped community with a population center that would probably very much be interested in getting access to the water there. So we've been working on a number of different angles. We're hoping at some point here to gain some traction and to get something installed in Conshohocken. That would be really important. It's really great. If we could get something in there, we could then access other landings downstream into the Philadelphia community. So that's something that we're working on. And finally, about 2 years ago, maybe, we completed the Schuykill River Greenways completed a new website. If you've been on that, we have an interactive map for the Schuykill River Trail. If you're a biker or hiker or walker, I really recommend you going onto our website and checking that out. It's a great interactive tool. We are actually in the process right now of creating something similar for the water trail itself. And it's going to have information on all the access points, directions on how to drive there. It will have the features along the river that are, hazards or places to avoid, tips on paddling. And it will also have this great feature where you can plan a paddle, where you can put in one landing, put in another landing, see how far they are apart, what amenities are offered at each one. So we're actually in the process right now of building this part of our website. We do have the hard guides, the hard copy Schuykill River paddling guide, which is fantastic. We have them for sale on our website, in our store, and also in person when the office is open. They're fantastic. They're waterproof copies. You can take them in your boat with you, take them on the river. They are really a fantastic resource. So if you don't have those, I'd encourage you to take a look at those. But the online version is coming soon, so keep your eyes open for that. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about some of the programs and events. I know Take It Outdoors has been an absolutely fantastic partner of ours for a long, long time in delivering some of these programs. Obviously, with the pandemic situation that we're all living in, it has pretty significantly impacted our ability to deliver some of our programs. Everything that we have through May and early June has pretty much been canceled. We want to be safe as an organization. We want to try to be smart. We don't want to do anything that's not good for the public and not good for our programming. So at this point, we're just sort of in the wait and see pattern to see how things change and how things progress. But we will keep you updated as much as possible. If you're on our mailing list, you will get information that way. You can always check our website. We will do our best to keep you updated as things change, as they are constantly changing. So one of the programs that I'd want to just speak to for a minute is our youth education program. It's called Schuykill Explorers. We actually have a couple programs, but the main one that we do is called Schuykill Explorers, and we engage youth in Pottstown and Reading and Norristown in watershed education, outdoor education, and oftentimes we have the ability to introduce some of these kids to recreation like kayaking and biking for the first time ever. We really work hard to get them next to the river, to get them touching the water, engaged in the water, so that they can develop an appreciation for the resource itself. So we have school groups, after school groups during the year, and then in the summer we host camps and daycares and all those kinds of things with programming in Riverfront Park. We also travel to other locations to visit kids. We have an education director who does all of that work for us. So if you know of anybody in the summer who is looking for a way to engage youth with outdoor education programming, please contact us. We'd be happy to give you the information about that program. Of course, many of you have heard of the Schuykill River Sojourn. It is our signature event of the whole year. We have been hosting the Sojourn since 1999. I think if we're able to host it this year, it will be our 22nd, if I'm correct, our 22nd Sojourn.
Yeah.
It's a 7-day event. We leave from Schuylkill Haven up in Schuylkill County, and 7 days later, we take off the river at Boathouse Row in Philadelphia. We camp out each night in community parks. We have educational programs at lunch and at dinner. We have 3 fully catered meals each day. It is a really, really unique event. We actually won an award, a national award several years ago for this program. So if you haven't paddled it, I know many of you have, seeing who is on the call tonight. Many of you have done the Sojourn. It's a really fantastic way to fellowship with people. People come from all over the country to join us for this event. Typically, we have about 100 boaters and kayakers, canoers each day. And it's a great program for our organization. It's an entire week drawing attention to the Schuykill River. So we get press to come out, we get elected officials to come out. It's really just a great opportunity to remind people of how significant the resource of the river is for southeastern Pennsylvania. So we don't know what we're going to do 100% yet this year in 2020, given the quarantine that we're in, and if things can slowly reopen, we still will be facing some of the issues that we are all aware of. If you've followed our information over the last month, we are not going to be hosting it the first week in June, which we typically do. We have delayed it. Right now, it stands, we're planning on trying to have a 5-day event in August, but I would say that even that is up in the air at this point. We're not convinced that that is even possible. So we have all options on the table. We're considering still having, obviously some kind of live programming, a single day paddle or a multi-day paddle. We're also considering a virtual Sojourn of some sort. There's a lot of creative ways that we can deliver a Sojourn this year. It's certainly going to look different than normal, but we are committed to coming up with something that's going to be engaging for people, and also continue to, bring to the forefront the significance of the Schuykill River for all of us in the region. So stay tuned. We have a board meeting at the end of May, and that's when we'll probably be making our final decision. So I'd say early June, we will be making an announcement as to what our plans are for the Sojourn. Another big event of ours is the Ride for the River. It's a bike ride that takes place the very last Saturday in September every year. So this year we have it scheduled for September 26th. It's a really awesome event. It's really fun. We do it in partnership with Sly Fox Brewing Company. They have their annual Can Jam tournament and music festival. And so it's a full day of really awesome stuff. So the bike ride typically starts around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. We have like a 15-mile ride option, and I think it's a 37 or 38-mile option as well for those who want a longer ride. We basically leave Sly Fox in the morning, and the long ride takes you all the way to Reading, and then you turn around and come back, and by the time you're back, the music festival has started. The Can Jam tournament is still going on. There's great food, obviously good beverages. So it's a really fun event, really, really great event. We've had almost 400 riders each event the last couple of years. So registration, I'm not sure. Registration, I don't think it's open yet for that, but the plan as of right now, we haven't moved that event. It still is scheduled for September 26th.
Typically, you're looking for a lot of volunteers for that too, right?
Yes, good point. We do need a lot of volunteers for that event. We've had great support the last few years. Like with the Monocacy Bridge project and the crossing there, we've got a lot of road crossings that we need volunteers for. We have volunteers set up at different food stations and break stations, water stations, the turnaround point. We have folks that put out signs and help mark the trail. Typically, I think we use around 40 or 45 volunteers for that event. So if anybody's interested in volunteering with us, that would be fantastic. So another event that's really awesome, something that we created, the Lehigh River had this program. It was called Bike and Boat. I think in the late 90s or early 2000s, they started their program. So we sort of copied their program, and we call ours Pedal and Paddle. And we've had this for probably the last 10 years or so, and it's incredibly successful. Most of them sell out. Basically, it's a really wonderful idea to introduce people to the Schuykill River Trail and the Schuykill River itself. We host 15 people per event, and the event takes on in some way, shape, or form a couple-mile bike ride, typically around 4 to 6 miles of bike ride. Usually like a break, like a lunch stop, or sometimes we do them in the evenings and it's a boxed dinner. And then folks get the opportunity to paddle back to the starting point. So it's a big circle. You bike for about 5 miles, you paddle for about 5 miles. You get some information on the greenways, some of our local partners and things that we're working on. We started this program primarily in the Pottstown area, but we have expanded it to like the Bridgeport Norristown area. We've done some other stuff along Lock 60 in the Loop. We do some out of there every year. It's a really good event. We host typically between 6 and 8 of these each summer. So if you haven't done one of those, it's a great way. You know, what we found is there's a lot of people who aren't kayakers, but they want to try it. And this is a really fantastic way for them to learn it. Take It Outdoors, Doug and Jeff and Evan, and all the guides that Doug and Chris, who work with Take It Outdoors, have really made this program amazingly successful. We've been really very grateful for all of their support in it. They're guided. Every participant is guided on the biking portion of this as well as the kayaking portion of this. And people a lot of people, I'm sure you know, are a little bit tentative to get into a river, moving water, in a kayak by themselves without any kind of instruction. And so I think with my experiences, I've engaged with a lot of the pedal and paddle participants over the years. People are coming for the kayaking piece of it because they want to learn and they want somebody to sort of be alongside them as they sort of figure this out. So it's a really, really great program. Sadly, we are not able to deliver this at this point in 2020. Certainly with 15 people plus guides on the trail and on the water, not an activity that's approved at the moment. So we'll see how things open up. If that changes, we will try to implement and host some pedal and paddles later in the summer, even early fall. So that's our plan. That's our hope. A new program for us last year was called Trails on Tap. Lots of people may know of the Parks on Tap program, which was in Philadelphia. The vendor for that program approached us about hosting that in local riverfront parks throughout the region. We did it last year. We hosted it in Pottstown, Royersford, Valley Forge, and it was a great success. It was a wonderful time. The vendor comes and sets up this basically this beer garden in different parks for us. And he's got food and beer and beverages. And it's just a great place to come relax next to the river. You know, as I mentioned in our mission, our goal is to connect people to the trail and to the river. And this was just a really natural way to do that. People can come and sit next to the river, enjoy friends and fellowship, and recognize the value that communities have, rivertown communities that are based along the river. And so it was really, really great. We are hoping to do that again this year. We were supposed to be starting in Pottstown this week and Royersford the following weeks. And then we were to be in Valley Forge National Historical Park, basically from Memorial Day to Labor Day is what our plan was. We're communicating with our vendor on a weekly basis. And if and when we can open up Trails on Tap, we will do so. And most likely it will be in Valley Forge for the summer. So again, sort of stay posted with our social media and our website to hear if and when there's a chance for Trails on Tap opening up at some point this summer. But that's exactly the kind of thing that we think people will want to do and maybe feel safer doing. It's outside. You can physically distance pretty easily, and also just enjoy some social interaction with people and some good food and beer. So stay posted on Trails on Tap. So in addition to all that, we've started to put together some virtual programming, like Take It Outdoors has done with these Friday night calls. We are going to start putting together a series of virtual programs that we will be delivering. We're looking at doing a couple different themes. The first couple are going to be focused on the Schuykill River Trail itself. We're possibly doing some on the environment and the heritage area, and then potentially a couple more on the river itself. So these are the three that we have planned for the month of May. May 14th, these are all Thursday evenings, by the way. May 14th, we'll be looking at Schuykill River Trail projects, current projects and updates. Our great trail project manager, Bob Falwell, and Greg Marshall, who is our head trail keeper, will both be doing that presentation. So they're going to go into a lot more depth on both of those bridge projects. If you're interested in how those projects work, the volunteer aspect to our trail, the upkeep, the maintenance, all those sorts of things. So that will be fantastic. That'll be on the 14th. Then the 21st, we will have Ken Lawrence and Val Arkush from Montgomery County join us. And then on the 28th, Sarah Jagula from Sly Fox Brewing. We'll talk about our partnership with Sly Fox, between Sly Fox and the Schuykill River Greenways. So we're really excited about this. You can see the link down there at the bottom of my slide for the link to our website. So if you go there, just go to our website. You can find it under the events page to see what we're doing and the virtual programming that we'll be offering even beyond those three. So, we talked a little bit before we started the presentation, Buster mentioned it. One of the great things about outdoor recreation, things like hiking and kayaking and jogging and being out on the trail, it can be done solo, it can be done in family groups, and people are really, really taking advantage of the Schuykill River Trail during this pandemic. People are really finding, some new people are finding it, and it's really encouraging to see the work that our organization does being so valued by the public. Our trail counts and our trail numbers have increased exponentially. We're just amazed at some of the visitation and the use that the trails are getting. It's busier than ever, and so we hope that we're able to deliver a good product for people and to communicate to folks, the significance and the value of some of these things. Again, kayaking is a great way to get out and recreate on the river, even if it's just a handful of people, easily physically distanced, and you can enjoy some fellowship, and you can enjoy just being out there in a social event with folks. So we want to continue to encourage to practice the safety guidelines that we've all heard. We want people to be safe and to be smart, but this is also a good chance to get out into the outdoors and enjoy recreation. So that's pretty much my presentation. I would say that if you have interest in volunteering with us, we have a lot of volunteer opportunities at those events that I mentioned. Each one of those events we need volunteers for. We also have the Trail Keepers program, which are folks that go out on selected Saturdays to do work. It's sort of like pruning back bushes and cleaning up debris from storms, that kind of stuff. We have a Trail Ambassadors program, which are basically people that are out on the trail to educate the public. They distribute maps, SRT maps. They talk to bikers and joggers and trail users about what's going on. They get feedback from people about ways that we can improve the trail. That's our Trail Ambassador program. So, and then we can obviously have all kinds of involvement with our events, as I mentioned. So that's my presentation. I'm going to click back, and I hope I don't find people asleep like I thought maybe. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
I'm going to start with a comment instead of a question. Just really appreciate everything you've done with the trail and the river. It's strange resource to have such a variety of uses happening, from industrial to the city, all the way up into like the old coal mining. Just deal with all the different uses of the river and all the different partners along it.
Well, you know what? It's a fantastic job. I will say working at the Schuykill River Greenways is a really, really great place to work. Every day is different. We get, like I said, we do recreation, education, conservation, all kinds of things. We have over 250 partners that we work with each year, all the way, like you said, from the northern sections in Schuykill County down to Philadelphia. It's a very, very diverse workload that we have, and it's really interesting work, and it's very fulfilling. And it's a great place. It's a great place to work. Our organization does good, really, really excellent things. And it's just it's good stuff. So we're glad to have people engaged with us like all of you. Take It Outdoors has been fantastic over the years. You know, Doug's leadership and his energy that he brings to our events is sometimes irreplaceable, honestly. So we miss having him around here, but we know he's having a great time over there with the several-week-old and not sleeping. So,
Tim,
yeah.
I wanted to thank you again. It was very interesting. I am going to have to sign off in just a moment. I have a prior commitment. But how do we sign up for volunteering for the events?
So you can you can email info@schuykkillriver.org. That's sort of our general email. Sarah, where you can call, of course, we're not in the office these days, but Sarah Crothers is our staff member that oversees our volunteer programs. So it's just Sarah Crothers at schuykkillriver.org. You could email her, or you can do the info at schuykkillriver.org. Either one of those will get you in contact with Sarah, and she'll give you a call. And depending on what level you want to do, we'll set up a time to meet and chat. Sarah's really great. The program has grown tremendously. John Wolf, who's on the call now, is on our board of directors. He and another board member have done a lot of work with our volunteer program over the last 6 months or so. So Terry, we'd love to have you come join us as a volunteer. It'd be fantastic.
There is a third way to sign up for a volunteer. It's on our website, schuykkillriver.org, and there's a volunteer button to click, and then there's a volunteer application form to fill out, and that would give you opportunity to volunteer for to show your interest in either taking part in special events like the Ride for the River or Trails on Tap, Pedal and Paddle, those types of opportunities. There's also opportunities to get involved in trail cleanup. You can sign up there for that. Also things like just office support. We've had several mailings that we've done over this past winter where we've had a dozen people come in and help stuff envelopes. And not only is it good savings and time well spent with the Greenways, it's also good fellowship with everybody getting together and chatting about. We always end up telling stories to each other while we're doing the work, so it's a lot of fun. So you can sign up on the website, and there's the volunteer application form is right there for you to sign up, and you'll get put on the list. And then you'll get notifications about all the activities where volunteers are needed, and you can sign up for activities if you want and participate as a volunteer, or you might want to pass on that one and wait for the next one that comes along. So we're really excited about the volunteering opportunities that we have. Tim mentioned a bunch of programming, and that's 10 staff members. So the volunteers play a huge role in helping the Greenways provide the volume of programs and events that the Greenways have put together. And the more volunteers we have, the more events that the Greenways can sponsor and put forward. So we're really excited about the volunteering program that we have right now.
Thank you very much.
Terry,
Have
before
a
you
good
sign
night,
off,
guys.
check out this chat section. Terry's been putting a lot of links up there for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
Terry. Any other questions?
A little bit more recent, as the upsurge in usage of the trail having any negative effects or any things that are making management hard as an organization?
Not necessarily. I don't think that we've seen to this point, other than just being concerned about the groups congregating at trailheads and things like that, trying to be conscientious and continuing to communicate and promote sort of safety when you're on the trail. Our staff has a daily staff call every morning, and that's sort of one of the recurring themes is how can we continue to promote some of the safety, because we want people to be out there. We recognize the incredible benefit it is for both mental health and physical well-being. So we want people to be out there, but we need to do so in a safe way. There are some sections of the trail, particularly down in like southern Montgomery County, that do tend to get pretty busy on nice Saturdays, nice weekends. And it's difficult to manage all the different uses on such a busy trail. You've got the people who are on their expensive road bikes, they're doing 20, 25 miles an hour on the trail, and there's people walking dogs on leashes in the same section. So we do have to sort of be conscientious of some of those things, the different uses and different users. But as far as maintenance, I mean, it's not a resource we have our trail keepers that do a really great job, particularly in Berks and Schuylkill counties, of keeping the trail in really good shape. I was up in the Schuylkill County section about a month ago, and it was in absolutely perfect condition. It really, really was. So I don't know, I can put John or Elaine on the spot. Can you think of any other ways that it gets sort of loved to death and makes our life difficult?
I mean, there's occasionally the ATVs that go on, but that happens all the time. That's not really just during this COVID crisis. It really, the biggest danger, the biggest concern for us is people not observing the social distancing. And it's a little hard to go out, obviously we don't have rangers on our section. And when you see people congregating, you can't really be sure, maybe they're all from the same household. You don't know. So, but in the end, the pros outweigh the cons, and the trail has really brought physical and mental solace to everyone using it. So I think our value has gone up significantly, and people have really recognized how important it is to have this asset in our community. And I just want to add, Tim, that was an awesome presentation, and I really want to get involved.
Yeah.
You're in pretty deep already. Tim, I have a question.
Sure, what's up, Buster?
As an optician, I was wondering where your glasses are. I'm used to seeing you in glasses.
These ones?
That looks more familiar. Very good.
Something from my
I'm
personal
literally
experience,
laughing. You're funny, Buster.
when I was growing up, we didn't live that close. We were closer to Philly, and from my father, I always got this idea that Schuykill it was just a dirty river, bad reputation, and it just seems like that must be a constant battle that the Greenways has to fight to say it's come a lot in the last 50 years. It's a really great resource.
Yeah, Jeff, that's a fantastic question, and one that Elaine and I particularly have talked a lot about the last couple of years, and we've actually started a project to address that exact question. When we do our public speaking and our public engagement like this, or whether we're visiting a group and talking, sure enough, somebody's going to ask that question. And so we can give some anecdotal evidence. We can give, obviously, compared to the early 20th century, late 19th century, the river is much, much healthier, much, much better than it was back during the peak industrial days. That much we know. But we want to be able to give people a little bit more to chew on, and a little bit more background, and a little bit more data as to how to answer that question so that they can feel safe. The Schuykill does have a bad reputation, sadly. However, there are other rivers that struggle as well, and it's not just East Coast rivers. There are beautiful, incredible Western rivers that struggle with the effects of mining, pollution, and yet they don't have and carry the same sort of reputation that the Schuylkill does. So a lot of our work, honestly, is trying to overcome the perception, that negative perception that exists on the Schuylkill. And I'm sure you guys, everybody on this call, has paddled the Schuylkill on a beautiful summer night when the water's clear and you can see the grasses and you can see the fish, and that changes your perspective. You've engaged with the river, you've touched the river. It changes how you feel about it, and that's what we really try to do, to get people to become stewards of it, and then to be ambassadors and promoters for it. So we started a project last fall with about 4 other partners up and down the river from Reading down to Philadelphia. And we're going to be doing some very low grade, low science monitoring, water quality monitoring over the course of 12 to 18 months. And we're basically trying to get some information so that we can tell the story of where the river is health-wise, and we can start to answer those questions. We're going to be probably testing and following things like dissolved oxygen, turbidity. We may be doing some E. coli testing. So stay tuned. We are hoping to get information. We started this project off, believe it or not, by doing a public survey to try to understand what people's perceptions are. And honestly, it didn't return anything that we didn't already know. Like yourself, Jeff, and the way you expressed it, that is how folks view the Schuylkill by and large. And so we're hoping that this project is just a starting point for how we can tell that story. Another partner that we work with is starting to do a State of the Schuylkill report that will be done on an annual basis. I don't know that one will be completed for 2020, although it may be. We're just starting that project on the front end. So there are a couple of things that we're really trying to do to give us some tools to go talk to the public about the river itself. So I appreciate the question, and as you come into contact with people who ask that question, tell a good story about the Schuylkill. Share the positive things. Certainly, one other thing I would say is, if it's called Philly Rivercast, which is run by the Philadelphia Water Department. If you go to their website, they have sort of a red, yellow, and green indicator for whether you can recreate on the river that day. And quite honestly, other than the couple days after a very high rain event, the Schuylkill is safe to recreate on. There's no question. So that's my answer to that question. Stay tuned. We hope that in the next year and a half, we can start to tell the story in a little bit more in-depth way.
Got one more question for you.
Yep.
The Auburn Bridge project, I think, kind of is a good example of some of the struggles of dealing with private landowners and developing a trail that could be for public access. So just maybe a quick overview of what's happening there and how you're kind of working around difficulties.
Yeah, there's an amendment that allows me not to answer that question, I think. Yeah, that's been a tricky one for sure. We do have a property owner up there who has not been the friendliest to work with, not interested in having the trail come through his property, around his property, near his property. And we have worked tirelessly for a long time. I've been with the organization since 2006. And this has been one of the biggest sticking points in places that we really want the trail to sort of push through that section. And so, we try to build advocacy in that region. We try to have community members who believe in our projects and an organization and believe in the trail and the benefit the trail brings to their community. And maybe another community member or a friend from the community will get to those kinds of folks and help change their mind or soften their position. But that simply hasn't happened. We're fortunate enough that another adjoining property owner there is friendly. And so we have basically found a way to get down off of the bridge down to the at grade there with the railroad tracks, and stay on this other person's property until we get out to what is River Road. And then the trail will head up on River Road until we can pick up completed trail a little ways down that road. So yeah, Jeff, I mean, It is tough. It is a tough situation. There's no question about it. We've pulled our hair out trying to figure out ways to do it. The way that if you've ever been in that location, you can see how the bridge, current bridge, at one point, the entire railroad went through this individual's back property. And it would make for a spectacular trail. There's no doubt it would make for an amazingly beautiful piece of trail right through there. But we've just gotten to the point where the benefits of waiting around just aren't. We want to get this completed and connected up to Schuylkill Haven and Pottsville. So we're going to go about the project a different way, and that's the direction we're heading. So we're fortunate to have gotten this pretty significant grant from the federal government, and we'll be building trail hopefully later this year.
What about from Pottstown to Linfield? Any progress on that?
Yeah, so ever since I started in 2006, the answer has been in the next 2 years. Well, it'll be done in the next 2 years, and then somebody comes in the door, and how much longer? Oh, about 2 years. And we really thought it was going to be completed last year, 2019, for the start of 2020. Chester County has all the funding, and just I think the beginning of 2019 secured the last piece of property that they need to complete that, from basically the Parker Ford section where it stops all the way up to Pottstown, the Arm and Hammer region. So Chester County has all the money. They have all the property. They were supposed to go to construction this year. I'm assuming that the pandemic has slowed that down. So I do actually believe that we will have trail completed there within the next year to 18 months. Yeah, and then the other difficult part is that, Montgomery County completed their piece of it along Industrial Drive about a year and a half ago, and it currently stops near the bridge itself. There is another, the trail business finds a lot of interesting property ownership issues. And there is an industry that doesn't even operate in Pennsylvania that owns the piece of land that we need to get down on, off of the bridge onto the land on. And last I heard, Montgomery County had made some progress about getting an easement or even acquiring that property. So it seems like we're really close to completing and connecting that gap, those two sections. So I would say in a non-pandemic quarantine world, that would be done within the next 18 months, something like that.
Completely awesome.
And when that's done, you'll be able to go from, basically South Street in Philadelphia, Christiana Street, then along the Schuylkill banks, pretty much all the way to Reading as one continuous trail. So that will be fantastic. All the studies say once you hit close to 100 miles of continuous trail, that's when people start coming, staying overnight, making it a destination trip, looking for camping spots, looking for bed and breakfast. So once we finish that connection, it will be probably in the 45 to 50 mile continuous range. But, there's an opportunity for an overnight or even a 2 overnight trip, depending on how good of a biker you are. So we're excited for that connection to finally get accomplished.
Tim, do you have any insight into the Kernsville Dam? There's been talk of removing that dam since it's no longer needed for coal silting purposes.
Boy, did you guys research all of our tough projects for tonight's Zoom or what? Oh, my word. Yes, there is talk of that dam being removed. This was initiated by the state, DEP. The Bureau of Abandoned Mine Reclamation is a bureau within DEP that oversees all of the abandoned coal reclamation sites. And a number of years ago, a very creative college student with a GoPro made a pretty awesome video, actually. I'd like to employ him myself for some pretty fun stuff. Made a really awesome video and put it on YouTube of, kids and people jumping off of Pulpit Rock up there by Hamburg. And it sort of went wild and caught fire, that video, and people started congregating there, and it wasn't a good situation. People weren't taking care of the river and cleaning up trash, and you know, it's a very dangerous spot actually, with what was happening there. So to make a long story short, the state has decided to try to remove it, to try to eliminate that problem. We've been on top of that as an organization. We see both sides of it. We understand that there are some folks who want the dam to remain there to keep the lake-like body of water there that has been enjoyed over the years by boaters and kayakers and fishermen. And there's other folks who want to see dams removed because of the you know, sort of the scientific evidence that is out there with dam removals across rivers in the United States and the value that that brings to opening up waterways. Our situation's a little different given that there was coal reclamation happening above that dam. There's legacy sediment behind that dam that, you know, potentially could be harmful. So we just, we're trying to stay on top of it to make sure that the public has an opportunity to speak into the project and to give their opinion, and which hasn't honestly happened to this point yet. But also we care about the river and its health, and we want to see the best decision made for that project. To date, we check pretty frequently. DEP has not submitted a application for permit to the Army Corps of Engineers. That's basically the next step that needs to happen. When that happens, there'll be an opportunity for public comment, and that's when we will hopefully be able to step in and help provide some of that. So it looked like it was on the fast course to getting completed and taken out, but it seems to have stalled even prior to the COVID-19 situation. So stay posted. We'll see how that progresses. But yes, there is talk of that dam being removed. Yep.
Thanks for the update.
Sure. Well, great. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you hopping on tonight. It's great to see and meet some new folks. Hopefully we'll see you on the river and the trail at some point this year, and stick your head in the office, say hello to us when you get the chance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Tim.
Thanks,
Thank
Tim.
you very much. Great job.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Tim, and I will copy the links that Michaela and Sarah put up into the comment section for you later on.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
And then coming up on Wednesday, we're going to be hearing about a trip to Switzerland from Megan.
Oh, nice.
And then next Friday, Russ, who's joining us for the first time tonight, will be sharing some bike packing and other bike touring options.
Very good.
Very cool. Our meetup site and on Facebook. So thank you again for joining us. And
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks all you Take It Outdoors folks. We love you guys. You guys are the best. We look forward to more trips together. So everybody hang in there. Be safe.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sam. Take care.
So, thanks.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Great. Thanks a lot.
We'll see you guys.
Right.
And then there was sex. I'd actually like to do a lot more on the river, whether it be with the Schuykill Greenways or the Schuykill Canal Association.